They walk like crabs and they murder people. It is Mirelurks from Fallout Wasteland Warfare. Today I'm going to show you how you're going to paint these in under 10 minutes. That's right, you can do a pair of these in under 10 minutes. So before I start painting, we've got to build these bad boys. So let's have a look what's in the box. For those wishing to pick up these Krabby Duo, you can get them straight off Modiphius for £22. I picked them up in Black Friday sale for only £11. I got a bargain. In an easy to post parcel which will fit through your letterbox, you get a little bag full of resin parts. Always check your parts. Resin casts can have bubbles, they can have little extraneous parts and some poor casts. I have yet to have this from Modiphius, so I'm praying this is another good box. So far so good. This model set is 2 duplicate models, so you will be doing them the exact same way, no doubt. If you want to change them up a bit, maybe some battle damage on the carapace. This is a soft resin, so it would be really easy to do with a hobby knife, and this is the perfect time to do it, so you don't have to risk doing any damage when fully assembled. When working with Modiphius models, these giant tabs on the bases can cause damage. You are best using a craft knife working in a downward motion, not around the edge of the rim. And make sure you finish off your edges with sandpaper, just a really fine grip. I love them, the little crabs in the air like they're waving, giving me big crab rave energy. So far these are all looking great. There is no bubbling, there's no weakness, the flash is minimal, just standard resin cleanup. As long as you've got a craft knife and a file, you are good to go, and a gel-based superglue will really help build these. Before working with any cast resin, I like to soak them in hot soapy water overnight. Give them a rinse and another wash with hot soapy water in the morning. This step is key in helping your paint bind to the model, as it does ruin adhesion if you've got mould release agent. Pause the video here, make a brew, and we'll meet back to start painting. Maybe even sub to the channel, how about that? Starting over a black primer, we're going to do a heavy dry brush of Ranger Cloak. This will give us a solid base colour for our carapace. You'll notice here I use a makeup brush. It is extra soft, which means we don't have any breakages. It's a wonderful way to apply an even coat of your base layer. The observant among you will notice I'm using my finger to support the model as I dry brush, to prevent breakages where there's a small contact area between the feet and the base. Once we've got a solid base colour on that, you're going to switch to a stippling brush and apply some field grey. This is going to do imperfections in the carapace, as well as some highlights and general wear and tear. Just generally adding some coloration that's a bit different. If, like me, you don't have a stippling brush about the right size for the model today, just trim the bristles off an old brush, make it nice and flat, and just go to town stabbing that bad boy. Focus on the raised areas and leave the gaps in the recess between the carapace of the armour. Many of you won't be using too thin coats, and hopefully one day you'll catch up. But if you're not, you can use this colour conversion chart in the description below to tell you which paints you need from your collection. This will cover things like Army Painter, Reaper, Vallejo, and even Citadel. Using Kobold Grey, we're going to edge all the carapace to make it look a little bit sharp and worn, but mainly to draw attention to each individual section. Remember, when edging, you do want to use the side of the brush. With a lot of the model being hunched over itself, it's really important to put this brightness in so people can clearly see all the different segments of the body. For anybody wondering, I did start my Fallout adventures on Fallout 76, but I promise you I know about painting. And I'm going with this colour scheme here. I believe in Fallout 4 it was a lot darker scheme. Many people go for a more black, grey aesthetic. I really like the kind of swampy look with the green and the orange. So to build up that orange, we're going to start off with Fur Cloak, and we're going to apply these to the tips of the claws and a few markings down the carapace. This is going to bring in some much needed contrast to the model, but it's also going to give you some individuality between your 2 matching sculpts and any others you may have picked up. If you do enjoy seeing me paint, make sure you join us 5 days a week on Twitch, where we paint D&D miniatures, Fallout, and we're even doing Rumble Slam at the moment, so it's a really good time to join in. At this point, I do realise that this looks quite white on camera, but we are going to be bringing it right down with a lovely brown wash in a little bit. Currently, our primary job is to lay down the foundations with a pop of colour, that being the orange, and we're going to finally try out some of these Duncan Rhodes 2 Thin Coats glaze paints. If anybody remembers, GW used to do glaze paints years ago. They removed them, and yet they were very popular. I don't understand. So here you go, we're going to go in with the orange glaze, and we're just going to cover the same areas. But like I said, this is my first time using the glaze paints, but this pop of colour is absolutely huge. I can't wait to try this on things like my slimes. I've been busy printing in translucent green. I'm wondering if a little yellow over the top will give them a little pop. So once we've solidified that orange glaze, we're going to move into a small highlight on the claw with dark sun yellow. This is just to show the extra pinchy bits being more violent and sharp. For those a little bit more experienced, you could try wet blending this in. I've been painting with two thin coats for about 6 months now, and I've completely redone my Orc colour scheme to involve this triad of yellows. Previously I had used the Reaper yellows, but they kind of hit an artificial yellow. The warmth of these yellows and the really solid base coating made these an absolute steal. If you ever go out and just buy a handful of two thin coats to try, please make it the yellows, the teals or the pinks. Now is the best time to be looking at two thin coats because Kickstarter 3 is just around the corner and it's a big saving against buying them from retail. Next up we're going to mix some Battlemud wash with 50% water and we're going to cover the entire model. This will help with the transitions, it will build up that brown-green colour, and best of all will cover up your painting sins, any blemishes you've added to the model that do stand out a little more. Again, talking the strengths of two thin coats, Battlemud wash over things like Agrax Earthshade or Umber wash, it contains green pigment in with the brown and it just gives this really natural transition, and it dries matte. So many times I've accidentally had a glossy Agrax Earthshade, even the matte one could come out really glossy. Which I guess wouldn't be a terrible thing on these models, being that they're naturally amphibious, but it's just not a style I like. We're going to pause on the Mirelurk for a moment and we're going to switch gears to the base. We're going to start off with Dust Bowl over all the sand and dirt. I do have to say that these scenic bases from Modiphius are absolutely fantastic. I just really hope they sort out that tab issue at the edge of the base. Moving on to the rocks, we've got Dungeonstone Grey. Any rocks, slabs or concrete or tarmac, do these now. And just stippling your sandstone, covering all the sand. And don't worry about getting it on the concrete slabs, it will honestly make it look better. It's a nuclear wasteland, a little dirt's not going to hurt. You have bigger problems, and these ones have two claws. Once that's dry, we're going to use some Wizard Grey, and we're going to add some texture and some highlights to that flagstone. And a very simple patting motion with the side of the brush will get this done in no time. To make sure these edges stand out against the sand, we're going to use Carcharodon Grey. Honestly, I find going bold on this really attractive on the model once it's finished. And don't forget you can always add some extra lines for stresses and wear and tear, which in Appalachia I'm sure there is. So we're going to go back to that 50-50 mix of Battlemud wash and just give the base a coating. It was in hindsight making this video, I realised that we probably could have done this part of the base first, then washed the complete Mirelurk and the base. For anybody trying to paint these in 10 minutes, I do recommend keeping a hairdryer nearby, but be careful not to overheat as the legs are quite thin. While that dries, pick out any of the barnacles and crusty bits of the hide, back with that Carcharodon Grey. Do remember you want to use the side of the tip of the brush, not the tip itself, to keep your brushes lasting longer. Here at Mike Moans we do recommend the Raphael 8404 sized 1. It is the most amazing brush. Sable, strong point, thick body, will keep going. I paint 60 hours a week and these last me about 3 months. Continuous use. I honestly use no other brush, whether it be a big surface area or a small detail. I pretty much only use these unless it is honestly a huge flat area. That said, I do make an exception for washes and dry brushes, but quite often when these are broken beyond use, I just trim the bristles down and use them as stippling brushes. If there are any edges on the bases that you feel have been washed out a little bit too much with the previous wash, you can top them up here as well. To bedazzle the base even more, we do have this Swamp Thistle from Rivalcraft. These are self-adhesive and will bond fantastically, just make sure you do apply them with a set of tweezers, as they can damage themselves, but also your skin, they are irritant. And as the infamous Bob Ross said, every little plant needs a friend, so we're going to add just another little tuft here. I believe this is their Wasteland Browns. With the colour of this little tuft, it really does sell that Appalachian vibes through nuclear winter. And a little black rim around the base just helps tidy up the model. With Modiphius models, I do advise you seal them with a varnish as the resin is prone to chipping. And that, my friends, is a 10-minute Mirelurk. I do hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you to all of my patrons. Without you, none of this is possible. If you'd like to see me paint some more stuff, like I said, I am on Twitch 5 days a week, and make sure you drop me a follow on Insta to see what projects we're working on.